Freemasonry, the Depths of Satan. Homily by Elder Athanasios Mitilinaios on Revelation chapter 2, verse 24. This homily was given in Greece on March 15th, 1981. Revelation 2:24. But to the rest of you in Thyatira, who do not hold this teaching, who have not learned what some call the deep things of Satan, to you I say, I do not lay upon you any other burden. So now, the Lord addresses all those Christians in Thyatira who did not accept the polluted teachings of the woman, Jezebel, the faithful who did not know the so-called deep things of wisdom, which are nothing but the deep secrets of Satan. Under the name Jezebel, my friends, we must also include another category of faithful, who, much like the self-illumined of last week's lesson, stay in the church, attend church, and receive Holy Communion. However, their activities as far as the faith goes are totally irreconcilable with the teachings of the church. Let's not forget that the woman, Jezebel, in this epistle of the Lord to the bishop of Thyatira is of a Gnostic background. For the Lord says, "She teaches and deceives my servants to commit fornication and eat food sacrificed to idols." Chapter 2, verse 20. Do you remember when we dealt with the Nicolaitans, who were also of a Gnostic influence? The important thing here is that this so-called false knowledge, or the things falsely called knowledge, as the ancient church fathers, particularly St. Irenaeus, described, is categorized as satanic. The Lord now addresses all those who were closely connected with a bishop and had stayed true to the healthy teachings. They were not indoctrinated, as the heretics would claim, in the deeper knowledge and wisdom, or in reality, the demonic knowledge and demonic wisdom. These heretics speak about the depths of their wisdom as an exclusive wisdom, as secretive knowledge, and as an unapproachable and untouchable wisdom to the infidels, that is, to the unsacred and uninitiated. The secret work of lawlessness is constantly at work according to St. Paul, especially today, as we have an offspring of Gnosticism, which is Freemasonry, or simply Masonry. Masonry is a Gnostic heresy. Sure enough, the books of the Masons call us, the non-Masons, defiled or unsacred. They claim to have the light, the illumination, and the pathway to the depth of knowledge, the depth of wisdom, the depth of philosophy, of which, as they claim, we are ignorant. Freemasonry is nothing less than a natural descendant of ancient Gnosticism. It can be classified as Neo-Gnosticism, if you will. I may have referred to Masonry so many times that I may be at risk of being labeled as somewhat of an anti-Masonic psychotic. I assure you, my friends, this is not the case. Masonry is a contemporary reality which affects everyone and everything in our times. It is certainly not a good strategy to underestimate the capabilities of the enemy. In order to fight an enemy successfully, we cannot underestimate his power. Masonry is powerful. It is the power of Satan. That is precisely why we are fighting, and we will always continue to fight, as long as we live, against Freemasonry. Do not be misled by the fact that it has no transparent public life, no publications, no open lectures, no apparent recruiting agenda or advertising. It works secretly. Masonry is Gnosticism. With God's help, that is precisely what we will show today. We will prove that Masonry is of a Gnostic dimension. We will see this by referring to the official documents of Masonry that we have in our possession. Once we prove this, then their doctrine must be included in this very letter of the Lord to the bishop of Thyatira, which condemns the woman, Jezebel. Jezebel is the perpetrator of this foreign doctrine, which deceives and misleads the servants of Christ. Since Christ condemns her, it only stands to reason that he also condemns Masonry. We need to prove this, and I must ask you, my friends, to give me your undivided attention and learn how the Masons themselves define their philosophy. We will do this directly and not circuitously. Even though it is more than obvious, I repeat, Masonry is Gnosticism. Once we show this, the case is closed. As Gnosticism, it is under the condemnation of the Church for the last time. Holy Scripture has written against Gnosticism. Both St. Paul to Timothy and St. Peter in his Catholic epistles write against Gnosticism. It is not surprising that the Church Fathers fought Gnosticism with an unparalleled vengeance, because it fought the Church with the same vengeance. Because Gnosticism may not be familiar to everyone, I will simply say a few things about it, even though I have done so a number of times in the past. In a few words, we could say, in reality, Gnosticism is a religious philosophy. It accepts a God, a world, and a human being. It accepts certain relations between a God, the world, and man. It looks at the world with dual vision, as good and evil. So it sees good and evil in the world, and it states that good in the world must be the work of the good God, and that what is evil in the world must be the work of the evil God. Consequently, God is not one, but two persons. God consists of two personalities, or simply two gods. Please keep in mind that there are great variations within Gnostic philosophy. There are great differences between the Gnosticism of Marcion and the Gnosticism of Basilides, and in many others. They each have their own idiosyncrasies. However, all these different Gnostic systems maintain the foundation of dualism, which is the existence of two gods, the good God and the evil God. The good God creates good, and the evil God creates evil. They are always at war against one another, and in the midst of this battle, man is always the unfortunate victim. Man is forever struggling to become free from the evil God. In the final analysis, Gnostics believe that man always hopes for such deliverance. He lives within nature. The Gnostic man does not believe in an omnipresent God, even though he considers God invisible. In reality for him, God is not above time or space. Gnosticism strives to borrow many elements from outside because Gnosticism in itself is an empty and naked philosophy that does not have anything of its own merit. It takes from whatever every human philosophy has to offer, and whatever the mystical religions have to offer. Orphism, Eleusinian mysteries, Hermetism, the thrice grand Hermes, the Eastern mysteries, Cybele, the mysteries of Osiris and Isis. These are ancient Egyptian mysteries. It has used elements from all these. It has taken elements from Judaism and from Christianity. Gnosticism has made a philosophical mixture of all these, which it then offers as its own. The danger behind Gnosticism is that it does not officially deny Christianity. Now, if someone tells me, I don't agree with you, I deny your beliefs, you are my enemy, I understand this and I keep my distance. However, when you hide and you do not show any denial, if you move about, you exist, breathe, and slither within the church. You take Holy Communion, you attend church, and yet you are an enemy and estranged from the body. Then there is real danger. This is plainly seen in the Freemasons. They take Holy Communion. They may be on the parish council. They are always in church, and they will use this to their advantage. If one would question them, they would have no problem responding. Yes, I am a Mason, but I am also a good Christian. I go to church. I take Holy Communion. I love my brothers. This is not to their advantage, but to their detriment. It is most unfortunate. This is the predicament of the woman Jezebel, who moved freely within the church of Thyatira. She is the typology of the contemporary Gnostics and Masons as she was for the ancient Gnostics. As I promised, we will expose some of their documents and their own literature. We will notice that in and on the exterior of Masonic lodges, as well as in their booklets, a central position is reserved for the letter G, which is placed within a star. In the Greek lodges, the third letter of the Greek alphabet is used, the letter gamma. In the Latin languages, the letter G is used, which is placed within the center of a star. It is a very common symbol that can be seen on the welcoming signs of every city and every small town. It is a blue sign, and in the center of the sign is the letter G, enclosed by the configuration of a square. On top of a 90-degree angle of the square, like the square tool of builders, is a compass, an instrument used for drawing circles, open at a 45-degree angle. This is the most popular sign of the Masons. You see it on the rings of bankers, maybe some attorneys, on the lapels of some judges, and on the temples of Freemasonry as you drive around. Now, the square and the compass are not as commonplace as we think. The symbolism around this figure is very rich and multi-sided. I will only tell you of some of the most basic symbols. The square on the bottom of the right angle is the symbol of matter. On the top, the open compass, opened at a 45-degree angle, symbolizes the spirit. So the symbolism pertains to spirit over matter. That is the basis of all dualism and the chronic tug-of-war between spirit and matter. Keep in mind, my friends, that Christianity does not accept two godly sources. There are not two gods. God made the heaven, the earth, and the things of the earth. There is nothing that has not been created by the one God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. The Word of God created everything, so it is not possible to have contradictions in the words of God. How is it possible to have good and evil work against or go against these very objects or creations of God? If evil exists in the world, this is not a consequence of dualism. It is a consequence of the interference and interaction of free-willed and logical beings, the devil being the first. This explains the introduction of evil. After this free-willed decision to rebel against God, the harmony of nature was shaken. This is how our faith explains evil, and not that it is some creation of an evil God, or that one God is in a state of contradiction, or that there is discord between spirit and matter. So there is really no such discord because the infinite spirit, God's eternal spirit, created the material world. How could this material world then be in opposition to the existence of God? Why would God oppose something that he created? How is this possible? The heavens proclaim the glory of God. Is it possible for the material heavens, the created heavens, to turn against God? Never. The body will resurrect, and the body will be saved. Matter will be saved, and this is inconceivable for the followers of Gnosticism. Inconceivable. They believe that matter is something bad. So, the compass rules over the square, which represents spirit over matter. Matter, being the square, is represented by a 90-degree angle showing fullness of expression. However, the compass is open at 45 degrees, which shows that the human spirit, because it has not mastered complete control over matter, will struggle to succeed in this control over matter, or the body. Inside this configuration full of symbolism, we have the letter G. The Masons are somewhat disappointed that they do not have an international letter that would be commonly recognized by all nationalities in all the languages of the world. So they ended up using the letter of the Latin alphabet G, since many languages have a Latin or Greek root. Since the letter G is also the initial letter of the word God, the G of Freemasons expediently means God. Please keep this in mind. Barnes, the English Mason poet, writes, "This hieroglyphic brilliance, which cannot be seen by anyone else but Mason brothers." He calls this letter G a hieroglyphic brilliance, and says that the light shed by this letter G can only be seen by the faithful brothers of Freemasonry. According to some sources, this G originates from the Hermetic philosophy that delves into magic. A prominent Mason by the name of Dalco. Footnote: the elder here uses European resources made available to him, which may vary slightly from their American counterparts, but the overall doctrinal beliefs of Masons are invariable. Dalco stated in one of his talks, "The letter G which decorates the lodges does not only express the name of the great architect of the universe, the God of Masons, but at the same time it also expresses the science of geometry." According to Lenhoff and Posner, The meaning of the Masonic G is God, geometry, generation, and Gnosis. Gnosis in the Greek language means knowledge, and this word Gnosis can be found unchanged in all the languages of the world. All the Gnostics of the world maintain this Greek word Gnosis in their vocabulary, regardless of language. So, this G is in the center of a star or between the configuration of the compass and the square, as we explained earlier. Now, since we saw the meaning behind this G, let's run ahead to the indoctrination of the 12th degree so we can see what this means to the Masons. I will read from their self-published manuals. We happen to have their publications and some books. I will read directly from their publications, and then I will stop and make a few comments. So let's take a glance at the initiation into the 12th degree of Masonry. The worshipful master takes off the hood of the candidate. They place on the floor a screen on which a large 5-pointed star is painted with the letter G in its center. The Grand Master turns to the candidate who is waiting to be initiated into the 12th degree. The candidate is called by the symbolic name of Moabon. This is not a permanent name, but only symbolic, which is standard for this 12th degree initiation. So, Moabon, in order to prove to us that you have gained full understanding of our teachings, tell us, what is the meaning of this mysterious letter? What is the meaning of the G inside of the star in front of you? The Moabon, or the candidate, answers, geometry, generation. The Grand Master replies, very well. Be informed that it also means Gnosis. You answer well, but I would like to add to what you said. It also means Gnosis. Now the manual proceeds to give a full and quite lengthy explanation of the doctrine of Gnostics. The Grand Master explains some of the main points to the candidate about this concept of Gnosis. We will only touch on a few of the points that the Grand Master presents to the candidate. I read, Gnosticism, my great and beloved brother, is the sum of some teachings which played a great role in the spiritual and ethical history of humanity. The word gnosis, a Greek word, must be understood to mean the opposite of faith. During the first centuries of human ignorance, the Gnostics came forth as great and worthy developers and cultivators of progress. The object of faith was dogma from revelation, along with a number of supposedly historic events. Concisely, all this represented the false knowledge of the Christian masses. On the contrary, Gnosis was only for the elect few. The purpose of this was the research and the inquisition of the prevailing ideas, including their initial beginning and the formation of a new philosophy. Please allow me to make a comment on this particular point. The Gnosis, they say, turns against the faith established by revelation of supposedly historical events. Do you know, my fellow Christians, what they are referring to here? By supposedly historical events, the Freemasons mean the incarnation, crucifixion, and resurrection of Christ. They call them supposedly historical. However, in the Old Testament, we have some events like the revelation of God on Mount Sinai and the prophets, and in the New Testament, we have a revelation of a number of subjects which can be known and understood only through the element of faith. Here the Grand Master says, we are opposed to this. We do not want the faith factor. We only want the gnosis factor. Those of you who can understand, before I proceed, hopefully can see how demonized these people are. Here we have the exact approach used by the devil, the ancient serpent. The thrice cursed devil told Eve, your eyes will be opened and you will have knowledge. Up to this point, Adam and Eve were grounded in faith, and God told them, you will not eat from that fruit, and that is final. They believed it, and the subject was closed. Now the devil influences them to reject this foundation of faith with the slanderous remark, God told you this because he is jealous of you, because he does not want you to become gods. Moreover, when you taste this fruit, then you will no longer need faith, but you will have knowledge. Your eyes will be opened. Doesn't Holy Scripture say your eyes will be opened and you will know good from evil? Do you see who rejects faith and introduces this new knowledge? The devil. It is extremely clear. This very thing, the preference of knowledge over faith, has always existed. But in these latter centuries, from the Middle Ages and into our days, it is called rationalism. Rationalism demands that for something to be accepted, it must be understood. Unless my mind understands something, I cannot accept it. This is it. So faith is not useful to me. I only need knowledge. I will accept whatever I can observe and understand by using my own mind. But this is preposterous. How is it possible to reject the existence of anything just because I cannot understand it? There are so many things that we do not understand, so many physical phenomena, and this is even truer in the spiritual and metaphysical realms. The very limited brain matter of men will never understand some of these things. Furthermore, Gnosticism claims that the purpose of this knowledge is the research and study of the prevailing ideologies, including their beginning and the constitution of new philosophies. It may be helpful to know that Gnosticism preceded Christianity by 3 centuries, and that it stayed at its greatest peak for another 3 centuries after Christ. Its last remnants remained until the 6th century. In reality, Gnosticism lives on. It lives through Freemasonry. The Gnostics claim that they have a new philosophy. The philosophy that they proclaim did not go unnoticed by St. Paul, who gave them the answer. St. Paul addresses this issue in his epistle to the Colossians. Look at what he says, because now you may be able to understand the meaning of this verse. See to it that no one makes a prey of you by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the basic principles of the universe, and not according to Christ. Do you see this? Be careful that no one influences you and takes you off course through philosophy. What type of philosophy? Gnosticism. This is the philosophy spelled out by St. Paul. What does he call this philosophy of Gnosticism? Empty deceit. In reality, my friends, Masonry is an empty megalomania as well. Empty to the bone, totally empty and according to the traditions of men. If we read some of their materials, their initiation rituals, their theory of Masonry, we will see that it is all a product of human imagination. They thought this all up. They created all their rituals and they built this most idiotic fabrication. When he says according to the principles of this world, St. Paul uses their own words because they speak of principles or elements. St. Paul uses their terminology when he says, according to the principles of the world and not according to Christ. I must also tell you that even in verse 9, for in him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead, the word fullness is also a Gnostic term, which they use to mean the entity that fills the space between the good God and matter. 30 different gods fill the fullness of the space between the good God and matter. The first God was the good God and the creator of spirits, while the 30th God was the creator of matter. They call this 30-God span, or hierarchy, fullness. Now, St. Paul uses their own terminology and he gives it Christian meaning. He Christianizes their terminology as he says, in Christ himself, for in him dwells all the fullness. There are no intermediate gods between some good God and an evil God. Christ is all. Christ is everything and Christ is the fullness. As St. Paul says, he is the fullness of godliness. There are no other gods. The fullness of godliness bodily became man. Now do you see how St. Paul answers the Gnostics of his day? If St. Paul was living today, but then again, St. Paul is here with us now in his epistles, he would say the same things about the phenomenon of the Masons, and his spirit would grieve seeing baptized Christians fall prey to the Masonic lodges. Let us continue with the instruction manual of the 12th degree of the Masons. The teacher continues to instruct the initiate, the unfortunate initiate, I should say. The struggle between the simple Christians and the Gnostics started immediately. The Gnostics were powerful due to spiritual superiority. As you can see, they think very highly of themselves. They have an air of superiority. Even to this day, the Masons consider us profane, impious, and unsacred. However, when they refer to a spiritual superiority, they are referring to their deep things, the deep things that the Lord brands and reveals as satanic. The teacher at the lodge continues, "Therefore the simple minds needed to fall victim to the acts of this hateful strange religion," and here they mean Christianity, "an enemy of the free research." We should not forget that the lodges are called workshops, and in these workshops the philosophical studies and research take place. By the way, the word Mason can be deceiving. Do not think for a second that the Masons maintain building tools in their lodges. Hammers, chisels, nails, vice grips, and the like. They are not stoneworkers. The teacher in the initiation continues, "The most significant characteristic of Gnosticism is the doctrine of a two-person God. To the Gnostic, God has two persons. This knowledge takes into consideration two origins, good and evil, or better yet, spirit and matter, another expression by which these two persons or origins reveal themselves. So, godliness has two forms. We could visualize a body with two faces, one good and one evil, somewhat of a two-faced God or two gods." According to Gnostic thought, the teacher continues, God is a supernatural being invisible and made manifest by two totally opposite qualities. One of these two qualities or faculties of the Creator or the Architect of the universe created the earth and fashioned man. Unfortunately, the other faculty also took part in this creation. This other faculty of godliness is an enemy of the source of good. Why is that? Gnosticism does not give any explanation. It has no answers. It simply limits itself to the acknowledgement of this unquestionable fact, unquestionable to them. The teacher continues, "Since good and evil coexist in nature, therefore the evil participates in the creation of the world." Truly, my friends, Gnosticism has never succeeded in solving the problem of the source of good and evil. This is true. They do not know how to approach it. They cannot answer it. So they do not answer it at all. Do you see how and why they fabricate all these myths to try to explain things? And the teacher continues, "The Gnostics hoped, and the Freemasons after them also hope." So, here the Masons call themselves the natural descendants of the ancient Gnostics. This is obvious. There is no room for doubt whatsoever. The Freemasons hope that a higher spirit will free humanity someday from the yoke of matter. Therefore, the Masons do not believe that Christ is our deliverer. However, Christ did not come to deliver us from matter. And here comes the knockout punch to the Gnostics. God is not opposed to matter or the body. The eternal spirit became matter. He took on a human body. He became man, and he came to save and deliver this matter, not to deliver us from matter. Do you see now, my friends, the destructive positions of these heresies? The destructive nature of these heresies is present everywhere today. Just yesterday evening, as I was listening to a religious radio program, one of the commentators who was speaking about funeral services, souls and the place of the souls, mentioned that the souls return to the place from which they came. What place is this? Where is this soul distribution center that transfers souls back and forth? This is an ancient Greek delusion. This is a Platonic falsehood. Souls do not pre-exist. People can say anything in this world of terrible delusion. So, getting back to the Masonic ritual, the Masons hope for a higher and superior spirit to free humanity from the yoke of matter. Hopefully, the future will give the answer to this question. However, this superior spirit must be helped by human effort, and especially from the Masons. Regardless of what the Christian leaders like popes and patriarchs say, Gnosis was never a heresy, but the philosophy of Christianity is a heresy. This is terrible. They call Christianity a heretical philosophy. If Gnosis did not live on, at least it was instrumental in the deterioration of the other religions, in the tombs of which Christianity founded its destiny. From this we see the hope of the Masons, or Neo-Gnostics. They hope to destroy all religions, and especially Orthodox Christianity. The teacher continues his initiation. Gnosis, or knowledge, came at a time of universal collapse of beliefs and ideas. This is true. It did well with polytheists and idolaters. It told them, you no longer have a philosophy of religion. You are only left with mythology and skepticism. So Gnosticism renders these systems useless. To the Jews it taught that their revelation is incomplete, since it springs forth only from the one divine person, and being the work of a single source, they don't know the ultimate being or how to interpret his law. A proof of this is the fact that the Jews are still awaiting a Messiah to deliver them from their estranged and deteriorated civilization. Simply put, since they speak about one God, their revelation is incomplete, because God is also the evil God. Proof of the existence of an evil God is that they are awaiting a Savior to save them from evil. What evil? Nature. Do you see how they place their thoughts? To the Christians, the Gnostic says, their leader is the highest manifestation of genius. This is true, but according to the Gnostic Masons, the apostles did not understand his teachings and their disciples altered the writings that were left to them. Therefore, Christianity is useless because it does not represent what Christ taught. According to them, Christ was a great Gnostic and a great Mason. The teacher continues, this is precisely why Freemasonry, the only true religion, having assumed the work of Gnosticism, will succeed in destroying the false religions starting from the Roman heresy. By this, they mean the Church of Rome, because these lodges originated in Western Europe and their obvious enemy was the Church of Rome. For years, the Western European Masons overlooked orthodoxy. They always attacked Rome, especially when the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, enslaved orthodoxy. Now they are very aware of Orthodox Christianity, and they are not very happy that it has lasted for 2,000 years. They want to destroy orthodoxy and Christianity in general. Masonry took on the mission of Gnosticism. As Christians, we will fight against Masons. The Masons come under the same heading as the name of the woman Jezebel, who is in the church in Thyatira. My friends, we have read what Masons write in their instruction manuals, and you clearly see that they are children of Gnosticism. I have told you this many times, and I am going to continue to repeat it. Masonry is Gnosticism. I especially emphasize this having been given this opportunity through the book of the Revelation. We must also add that Gnostics used to worship Cain. They are followers of Cain. They also venerated Canaan, the grandson cursed by Noah. Esau, who did not get Jacob's blessing. Korah, who rebelled and spoke back to Moses. Dathan and Abiram, who were swallowed by the earth when it opened, after they argued with Moses. All this is from the Old Testament. Gnostics venerate all of the above people, as we mentioned, but they especially venerate others from the New Testament. They venerate Judas Iscariot, who betrayed the Lord. They look at the betrayal as an act of philosophical virtue. Do you know why? It is simply because they believe that the men of the Old Testament were people of Yahweh, the Lord, and therefore followers of the bad God, the evil God. According to them, this evil God created matter, created the natural world, so he is therefore an evil God. Those that rebelled against the followers of the bad God are Cain, Canaan, Esau, Korah, as well as the others whom we have mentioned. Anyone who rebelled against the God of the Old Testament is a great hero for the Gnostics, because they oppose the people of God who worship the bad God, the creator of matter, the creator of the universe. But pay attention to this. Cain is the father of civilization in the Old Testament, and this is their boast, their pride and joy. The Masons love Cain because he is the man who ventured out to search and gain knowledge, civilization. Abel and Seth, however, were losers. They were halvadis, as we say in Greek. The Masons do not want them because they are people of faith. Do you understand now the concept of knowledge versus faith? Knowledge turns against faith. Christ introduced faith, and Judas, by his betrayal, wanted to kill this phenomenon of faith to promote knowledge, which is the weapon of Gnostics. This is why they honor Judas. Moving ahead to the initiation of the 18th degree, which is called the Rosicrucians, we find there that the symbol of the initiation is a cross surrounded or encircled by roses. For one who has no clue about these matters, this cross may appear as most articulate and even beautiful. There is an inscription on this cross with Latin letters, INRI. Again, one might think, well, that's easy enough. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. But it does not mean this at all. For those outside of Masonry, maybe, but not for the Masonic disciples. The teacher says to the 18th degree disciple, read this INRI. The disciple reads this, Igne natura renovator indegna. Nature is renewed totally through fire. This cross has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, the Nazarene, King of the Jews. Instead, it boasts that fire renovates nature completely. This was a teaching of the Stoic philosophy. This is also taught by materialism. If we open the small philosophical dictionary of communism, you will find this definition. How does nature renew itself? Nature always existed. It exists, and it will always exist as an eternal fire. This is Stoic philosophy. The communist philosophers borrowed this from the Stoics, and this is the cross of the Rosicrucians. There is even more, and I read from the manual. The cross, having been an object of worship, was not only the simple image of the equinoxes, when the sun during its annual path covers these 2 points successively. So, this was not the only meaning of the cross for those initiated. The cross is the symbol of the 2 equinoxes, and the rose is the most excellent emblem of the woman. As the cross symbolizes masculinity or the sun, the rose symbolizes the woman. The ansara, the Egyptian cross, used quite often in jewelry today, is like the lowercase letter T, and it has a circle on the top. This is symbolic of the reproductive organs of men. Forgive me, but that is what the Egyptian cross symbolizes. Therefore, the cross, according to the Masons, is the symbol of masculinity, or the symbol of the sun that fertilizes the earth. Osiris was the sun god and Isis the goddess earth. The earth is fertilized by the sun and gives birth to Oron, or man. And this is from Egyptian idolatry. Thus, the cross of the Rosicrucians symbolizes masculinity, or the sun, in all its dynamics. The combination of these 2 symbols, cross and rose, expresses the union of the sexes, which is the symbol of the universal renaissance or rebirth. Do you remember about the letter G being Genesis or generation, along with geometry and God? Well, this is what it means. They have nothing to do with the cross of Christ. My friends, Leo Taxil writes, Masonry is Gnosticism beyond a shadow of a doubt. This is most clear. It is not surprising, then, that ancient Gnostics worshipped Cain and the ancient serpent. So today's contemporary Masons, whether they realize it or not, worship Satan. This is not surprising. Let the Masons come and prove us wrong. They worship Satan, and Christ reveals this to us. According to Leo Taxil, the Gnostics, along with today's Masons, recognize as the beginning of good Lucifer, the devil, and as beginning of all evil, Sabaoth. Therefore, the God of the Old Testament is the bad God. He introduced evil by creating matter. The devil Lucifer is the good spirit, the good God. Isn't this shocking? Thus, they have this prayer for the devil. Come, Lucifer, come. You who the priests slander, come. Come, so we can embrace you to hold you tight in our arms. We have known you for a long time, and you have known us for a long time as well. In the darkened eyes of the plain masses, your works do not always look beautiful. Your works do not always look good, O you blessed of our hearts. Only these can explain the laws of the universe. Without your works, O Satan, the universe would be nonsensical. Only you revitalize, only you produce work, only you refine the commonwealth. You seal virtue. To you belongs the beginning, to you belongs the throne. You, O Adonai. Adonai is our God, the God of the Old Testament, and they turn against him. You, O Adonai, God of plunder and God of injustice, we deny you. You hate science, but we have prevailed and possess science in spite of you. You hate happiness, but we will earn it through science in spite of you. Each one of our progresses is a triumph under which your divinity is pulverized. Spirit of lies and delusion, your kingdom is over. Seek victims among the animals. You already have been destroyed and crushed. Your name, which until now was the last word of the wise, the authority of the judge through the oaths, the power of the rulers, the hope of the poor, the refuge of the penitent. Your name, which is unutterable for us from now on, will bring the scorn and the anathema from men. It will be erased, and it will be progressively forgotten. You will remain as the synonym of hypocrisy, lies, superstition, tyranny, and misery. Note, only the devil can talk like this. Taxil continues. As you can see, these people are really demon-possessed. As long as humanity continues to bow down before your terrible, monstrous statutes, humanity will be the slave of kings and priests. Humanity will suffer and wither. This is why the motto of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, and brotherhood, has been said to be of Masonic origin. Taxil continues. As long as men will swear in your hateful name, the breaking of the oaths will be the foundation of society. Go away, vanish, O executioner of our logic, menace of our conscience. Here, Leo Taxil adds, the Masons of the 33rd degree kneel in front of Baphomet, a statue of Satan who is raised above the altar, and he is none other than the great architect of the universe. So, the great architect of the universe, Baphomet, is the devil. This is whom the Masons worship. By the way, pay attention here. This is not revealed immediately. As the disciples of Masonry advance, little by little, they approach the gates of the 33rd degree, which is the final degree. Then they will become participants of the great secret of Masonry, and that is exactly what we are talking about. The great secret of Masonry is that the great architect of the universe is the devil. This is whom the Masons worship, and not the God of the Christians, who the Masons need to destroy at all costs. This, my friends, encompasses the deep secrets of Masonry. Again, Masons of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th degrees have no clue about these things. They simply go through some rituals, and if the Masons see that they are not very progressive, and they are not the type they want to promote, then they do not promote them. Once again, the deep secrets of Masonry are the worship of the devil and the persecution and humiliation of the holy triune God of the Christians. Now let us ask ourselves, is it, or is it not, true that the Lord reveals, in his epistle to the Bishop of Thyatira, that this teaching comprises the deep things of Satan? This is precisely why in this homily we have dealt with Gnosticism and Masonry, especially since Masons circulate very freely in our church. They become parish council members. They join the ranks of the priesthood, and I'd better not say any more. However, my friends, our time is up, and I will close with a couple of thoughts. Today we celebrate the feast day of our holy orthodoxy, and we must come to the realization that we are dealing with a monstrous enemy, Masonry, a great enemy indeed. Please open your eyes. The ancient fathers of the Church turned against Gnosticism with all their might. Today we must turn against Freemasonry, the newer manifestation of Gnosticism. In this, we receive much help from the Holy Script of the Book of the Revelation and the revealing statement of the Lord that we are dealing with the depths of Satan. My friends, we should be horrified to be in the midst of these realities. We must also add that in the event that some uninformed people find themselves in the tantalizing web of Masonry out of ignorance, delusion, or financial need, we are called to ask them and all those future victims to flee quickly from the lodge. We need to help those deluded souls by any means. But the faithful must watch as well. The faithful should not be shaken when these enemies of the church strive with every method to influence people and push their will on the church. The Lord, as the sender of the previous epistle to Pergamos declares, "These things says he who has the sharp two-edged sword." He foretells and warns his enemies, the Satanists. "Repent, or else I am coming to you quickly, and I will fight against them with the sword of my mouth." St. Paul uses the same words for the coming of the Antichrist. His name is the Lawless One, because Masonry is a forerunner of the Antichrist, whom Christ will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. My friends, Satan is real, and he is working full-time with the most horrible means against the Church of Christ. Let us not forget that Satan has his residence and his throne here on earth. Let us not forget that Satan has his synagogue. Let us not forget that Satan has the deep things of his maliciousness. Knowing all this, let us stand well. Let us keep sober and vigilant.